Big changes for the Buccaneers this offseason, starting with that paint-drinking head coach who came out of retirement for the second time, Bruce Arians. The first time he retired, it really wasn't a retirement. The second time it was, but then it wasn't. He's back in the game after his time with the Cardinals. And, Big Cat, I look at this as the key move that just from an all-or-nothing standpoint, right? 5-11 they were last year. This is either going to go great for the Buccaneers or it's going to be a disaster. We're going to find out fairly quickly whether or not Bruce Arians can make this thing work. And job number one is get the most out of their franchise quarterback, who is yet to play consistently like a franchise quarterback, Jameis Winston.
So the Bruce Arians, Jameis Winston relationship is obviously the headliner here. But to me, what the Bucs have done this offseason, you have Todd Bowles be the defensive coordinator, and probably not a good head coach, but he's going to be the guy who will hopefully make this defense better than, I think they were second to last or last, however you want to look at it. I think Todd Bowles and their draft, if you look at their draft, they went heavy on defense, which is a sign to everyone that Bruce Arians thinks he has enough on offense to make this thing go with Jameis Winston, with Mike Evans, and he can figure out a way to get the most out of them. Can the defense kind of catch up to what Bruce Arians will be doing on the offensive side of the ball?
Deshaun Jackson gone. He was the deep threat in the offense. Brashad Perriman, they hope that he can at some level duplicate what Deshaun Jackson did, although Perriman's been a disappointment most of his career. The one thing that came up recently for the Buccaneers that's going to be a problem, that Jason Pierre-Paul neck injury from the one vehicle accident over the weekend. He could miss all of the season. He could miss into the second month of the season. That's going to take a toll on that pass rush. And you're right. The resources committed to the defensive side of the ball in the draft. They know that's where they need to beef up because offensively, Arians is confident he can get the most out of what they have. And they've got one of the more underrated players in all of football in Mike Evans. So I don't know that they needed Deshaun Jackson. Mike Evans has been great for them. O.J. Howard could be coming into his own as one of the best tight ends in football. Cameron Brate still continues to be very effective pass catcher. It's all going to come down to Winston, though. I mean, Winston has that genetic defect where he thinks he can do more than what he actually can. And he all too often tries to do more than what he's physically able to do. And I think that's the one thing that Arians needs to engineer out of Winston's DNA, if he can. If he can. There's a question as to whether at this point in a guy's career you can get him to not make that god-awful attempt at making something happen at the worst possible moment. But if Arians is able to do that, then he will be successful.
It's the Brett Favre genetic defect that you're talking about. When it's good, you're a gunslinger and everyone loves it, and you're a guy who makes plays. When it's bad, you are looking really bad, and you're right. Jameis Winston does have that proclivity to make those key interceptions, red zone fumbles, where I feel like when I always used to make a joke, like the red zone channel, when you flip to it, when they would go to the Bucs games, it was a 50-50 shot. It was a good player, Jameis Winston, fumble, because it feels like the ball is kind of always floating in the air when he's there. The other two pieces that I noted when I did a little research for you, Mike, because, yeah, I do research for this show. The Bucs are making the transition to a 3-4 defense. So they used to be a 4-3. They're going to blitz a lot more. We talked about the defensive side of the ball with Todd Bowles. And then, finally, I know this is an off-season acquisition, but you have to, when you're talking about the Bucs in 2019, you have to mention that brutal stretch that they're going to have where they have 18,000 miles traveled between Week 4 and Week 9. And can the team survive that? Because they could be great for the first 3 weeks. They could look great. Bruce Arians could be playing great, or coaching great football with Jameis Winston. But when they hit that stretch there, it's going to be a bear. They go at Rams, at Saints. I think there's a London game in there. Yeah, the London game is actually the Carolina game. So what you think is a home game in there is not a home game. Then they go at Titans all the way across the country to the Seahawks. So will the Bucs be able to survive that gauntlet? I mean, that's actually, looking at it right now, it's actually incredible what the NFL kind of did to them. Going West Coast to the Saints, to England, to Tennessee, all the way back to the West Coast. If they can't survive that, the season could be over very quickly.
Now, and you look at the back end of the schedule, 3 of the last 4 games at home. If they are not in playoff contention, that stadium is going to be a ghost town those last 3 home games. And that's one of the problems when you have that 7-week gap in the middle of the season where you don't have a game in your home stadium. If you get a lot of games clustered at either the beginning or the end of the season for them, they get 3 of the last 4 at home. It's going to be horrible if they're not in contention. If they are in contention, it's going to be spectacular. We'll see if they can do it. The over-under has been set at 6.5 wins for the Bucs. That's 1.5 more than they had last year. Where are you going, over or under?
I'll probably go under. I'm going to hurt my producer, Stephen Che, when I say it because he's the biggest Bucs fan I know. But I'm probably going to go under just because of that schedule. I mean, that stretch is going to be very, very hard to deal with. And I am not a believer in Jameis Winston. I'm a believer in Bruce Arians. I'm not a believer in Jameis Winston. You alluded to it, Mike. When you have that, like whatever it is inside of you where you're just throwing the ball away or you're a little careless with the ball in key situations, I think it's very, very hard to coach out of someone. And I think Jameis Winston, as Bruce Arians will try, I think he still will have a little bit of that trait in him, and that will sink them to maybe a 6-win team instead of an 8-win team.
Where do you think Winston plays next year?
That's a great question. I have no idea. The Dolphins? I feel like you can just say the Dolphins whenever a quarterback comes up, and you can have like a 50-50 chance of being right.
Backup quarterback for your Chicago Bears, Jameis Winston.
No.
Get ready. No. 2020. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to do some PFT props as this Friday edition of Pro Football Talk Live on NBC Sports Radio and NBCSN continues right after this.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.